Hi.
Hey Chelsea, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Are we all good this time?
Yeah, I can hear you and I can
Okay.
see you.
I don't know. Last time we were trying to do this, my audio inputs just went absolutely crazy. So it was like I couldn't hear you, you couldn't hear me. I don't know what was going on, but luckily we got it fixed this time. But thanks for being here. Thanks for doing the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the podcast. I'm excited.
Yeah, your people were asking me, and I find it funny because it's like, do you do audio or do you do both audio and video? And sometimes I do both, but sometimes other people are comfortable, and then I'm like, well, let's just try the video. And then I'm like, oh, that's why you just wanted to do audio because you don't have a great setup, but you have a pretty simple setup that you just where are you at your living room recording studio.
Yeah, I'm just in our home studio.
Yeah, very just a very simple place where it's quiet and all that stuff,
Yeah.
which is very which is enjoyable. So you have a home studio, kind of. Is that always been like a dream to have a home studio where you don't have to leave to record?
Yeah, honestly, it's been really nice. We still record our drums at our friend's studio because they have all of the like soundproofing and correct mics, and we don't have that for drums. We don't have enough mics to mic up a whole drum set, but we record everything else here.
And when you're doing that, kind of, I guess, just kind of jumping into the podcast here, um, so when you're just recording at home, kind of, what's is there a different feeling than when you're recording in an actual recording studio besides your home studio?
Yeah,
You have to feel more
totally.
comfortable. I feel you have to be more comfortable because you can record in pajamas if you wanted to, you know.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely more comfortable, and it's nice because we all are. My band lives together, so
Okay.
we can all be present while we're recording and stuff. But it's definitely a different feeling than being in a studio, which I feel like has more of a magical feeling. Like you knock out all of your parts in one day or 2 days, and it feels more like we're more spaced out when we record. So we might record my guitar parts one day and then bass a couple weeks later, and it's definitely, I don't know, it's a little lonelier recording at home, but it's you get the studio magic when you're in the studio.
So you live with your band and you
Yeah.
guys are a band. So I mean, I can only imagine what you guys must either really hate each other to live together or really love each other to live together.
Yeah, I feel like they feel like my family. Like we get along really well, and it's really nice to live with them. And we also live with our friend Kyle, and it's an awesome living situation. We all work really well together and live really well together, so it's just really easy.
So I was looking at some of your information and we'll kind of come back to the living with the band thing. But you were born in Massachusetts, but then you moved to Spain. Is that right? Kind of
Yeah,
what's that
so
story?
so my mom is from Spain, so I kind of grew up spending my summers there. And then when I was in eighth grade, my parents were like, you have to go live in Spain with your aunt and uncle. So I lived there. And then while I was there, my whole family moved to California. So when I came back, we were in California.
Well, wait a minute. So you were in eighth grade. Your parents kind of Fresh Prince of Bel Aired you to Spain. What was the reasoning behind? Oh, you have to go live with your aunt and uncle.
I think they wanted me to learn the language and get more of a feel for the culture and spend time with my family there. And I'm really glad that I did because now I can speak Spanish and I'm close with my family out there.
How long were you there in Spain?
Um, I don't know.
Was it a
I was so
while?
young, so it felt like a century because I was so young. But yeah, I don't know. It I think, yeah, I don't know. Like a school year.
Okay, so you weren't there 4 or 5 years. You were there pretty much like a maybe like eight, 9
Mhm.
months, pretty much.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, so it was a great time. My aunt like taught me like the only reason that this my school let me go was if I read a couple books that were required, and so my aunt kind of like taught me school.
Got you. So when you come back, and then now you're in California, so you leave Spain, and now you come back. Your parents have moved from Massachusetts to California without you. You come to California. Just forget for a second that you were just leaving one country for another and not coming back to the place that you've known. But now you leave the country to go to Spain, a whole different world that you've never been to, then just to leave and go to a whole nother world that you've never been to.
Yeah. It was crazy, honestly. I feel like that time frame was really hard for me as a kid because I feel like when you're that age, you kind of need stability. And my life was not very stable until like a couple years ago. And so it's been really nice. Like living with my band has been the most like calm, stable living situation I've ever had in my life. And I think that's why I enjoy it so much.
When did you leave home, and did you go to college after you left home?
Yeah, yeah. So I left when I was 18, and I moved to Nashville, and I went to Belmont for well, I guess I graduated Belmont last year, and I met the guys in my band at Belmont. Um, yeah, and then we all moved in together, um, like right when we graduated.
Oh, so you're Nashville based. So like you went to Belmont, Nashville. You're in Nashville. Okay, I didn't realize that. So kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so coming from California, is there now? Obviously, if you're moving to Nashville, there's country roots a little bit. I would assume. So kind of where does the country music roots come from in your on your side of the family?
I think that's a good question. I think honestly, no one in my family listened to country when I was growing up. It was more like my dad was really into punk rock, and my mom listened to like Madonna. And so then, I kind of, while I was working here, initially I wanted to make pop music when I came to Nashville. But then I started working with Dave Auday, and I realized that I really liked this like Western Spanish sounding kind of country vibe, which I did like a whole EP of. Um, and I think that those kind of like Western sounding country roots came from my Spanish side for sure.
So you go to, let's just say you're in Belmont, right? You're going to college. What's the dream in Belmont? Is it always to be a singer? Was it just to write music? Kind of what did you go to Nashville to Belmont for?
Yeah, I think so. I studied songwriting and music business, and I mean, I just really love words and I really love writing, and I wanted to be a writer. Um, I wanted to be a songwriter when I went to college. But then I realized I really, really love performing and like live shows. And with the type of music we make, like the energy and like people at those shows are just so fun and inclusive and kind and non-judgmental, and it's such like a great environment that I realized like I really love the performing aspect of music, and I also love writing because it's so healing.
Do you remember the first concert that you've ever been to?
um yeah, so actually this is kind of crazy. I really didn't go to a lot of concerts growing up. I
Wow.
went to like Taylor Swift and Drake, and I wanted to. My ex-boyfriend in high school was in like a punk band, and so I went to some of his concerts and ran the merch table, and that was kind of like the first taste that I got for that scene, and I loved it. It was so amazing. But then there was like a gap, like a 7-year, 6-year period where I didn't go to any concerts like that until a couple years ago. And it just feels like so nice to be back in that scene and like listening to that music, because That's the kind of music I love. And recently I went to the Beach Bunny concert at Brooklyn Bowl, and that was like the best time I've ever had in my life. We were all moshing. It was amazing.
Man, that moshing is a little crazy, huh? There's no
Yeah.
way. There is no way I'm doing that. I'm usually in the nosebleeds or the halfway point because I'm like, I'm not getting trampled. I'm not gonna fight somebody.
Yeah,
Moshers,
no, it's
yeah, you're gonna have to be a little crazy to do the moshing.
yeah, no, it's really intense. And I feel like I'm at like most people's like elbow height. So it's really scary when I'm in the mosh pit.
You were at the mosh pit for the beach bunny.
Hmm.
So what is exactly the beach bunny? I don't know if I've ever heard of that. I don't think.
Yeah, Beach Bunny is kind of an up and coming band, but I feel like they've kind
Oh,
of
okay,
more
it's a
made it.
band. Okay, I thought the thought was like some type
Yeah.
of a festival.
No, no, yeah, it's a band.
Okay,
They're based out of Chicago. You should check out their music. They're really awesome.
what are they like? Is it punk rock? I assume since you're moshing.
Yeah, it's like punk rock, but more melodic. I don't, yeah, it's kind of like
Okay,
pop punk,
so
but not pop punk.
so it's kind of is it Green Day Dookie or is it another type of punk? Put it that way.
um, yeah, I feel like it could totally fall in that sort of vein. The vocals are just more like dainty than Green Day, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Like a they're like a good Charlotte lyricist with Green Day music.
Yeah, yes.
Remember Good Charlotte back in the day, back when they were on their hayrides with like the anthem. They were like a legit band that were damn good, and then they just like fell off the map 3 or 4 years afterwards.
Yeah, yeah. Dang.
Just took a memory back there, huh?
Yeah.
So when I kind of want to know when you're writing music, usually what comes first, the melody or the lyrics?
Yeah, I think for like the longest time it was melody. I would start writing on my whatever instrument, and then I would write a melody and then lyrics. Um, but as I've gotten more into writing poetry, I've always really been into reading poetry, but I've always been afraid to write poetry because I felt like I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't like deep enough, or I didn't have a good enough vocabulary. But since I've started writing poetry, I've been using those as a lot of lyrics. So like we have a song out called Garden, and that was all from a poem I wrote. And so it really just depends on the situation, I guess.
So let's talk about the band. The band is called Chelsea. Your name's Chelsea, so I'm assuming you're the front woman of the band. Kind of talk about the formation of the band and kind of the path it's headed.
Yeah, so I met Sawyer, who's our drummer, when we were in school, and we played music together like pretty much throughout college. When I was making more like pop music
Mhm.
and that like Western sounding music. And then I met Sean, who plays bass, when Sean is friends with Sawyer. And so we all just decided to move in together. So I met Sean like basically when we moved in to live together. And he ended up joining the band and playing bass. And yeah, ever since then, it's been really great. We were called American Gothic for like a summer. And then we were like, nah, we should go back to being called Chelsea. And so here we are.
What was kind of the inspiration behind the name of the band?
So actually, my like project, my like pop kind of like Western sounding project was just called Chelsea.
Spelt
And
the same
then
way the band is, or spelt like a first name?
yeah, spelled the same way. You can
Okay.
it's still up actually under our name. But when we decided to switch the name from American Gothic to Chelsea, we were just kind of like, well, like what should we rename our band? And then we were like, well, I guess Chelsea already has listeners, so we should just go with that. And that was kind of our thought process.
Can you remember when you first started music and you started putting music out there, can you remember the first time you got like a positive comment versus the first time you got a negative comment? Kind of what that was, kind of, because I get those all the time. I get emails and they're like, man, that episode was great. Or, and then you'll get one. It's like, man, you suck at your job. Why don't you go hang yourself or something? Just something crazy that people don't give a crap about, And it's like, but you take that to heart. And you're like, wow, maybe I should really listen to what the haters are saying. But then once you're doing that, you're kind of chasing a never ending trail.
Well, for starters, I think you're doing a great job. I think you're really great at what you do.
I
So
appreciate that.
the haters can go away. But no, I think, I've always kind of like, I've always had haters since I was like young. Like people have just like not liked my vibe since I was a little kid. And so I kind of just like learned not to care really what people thought of me. And I think that's the beauty of music, is that it's so subjective that like who cares if someone doesn't like your song, That's like they don't have to listen to it. There's so many people that do like your music and will like your music. That's what I think is so beautiful about music, is that there's so much of it, and it really doesn't matter if one person doesn't like it. And I think people really um, get too comfortable hiding behind their screens, and I think they don't realize that the person that they're looking at is also a person, and so it's just like an easy way to let their anger out. But I found like I've responded to a couple of hate people on like TikTok, and anytime I respond to them and I'm like, just like hear them out or like listen to them, like if they say some hate, I'll be like, oh, thank you for the advice, or like, just like hear them out. That's all they want. They just want to be heard, and then they're super nice after that, which is kind of crazy. I think it just makes me realize that people just really need to be listened to and want to be heard. And
Yeah.
in our society at the moment, like everyone has a really hard time listening to each other. Like when you're in a conversation, you're like forming what you want to say back or what you want to ask them. You're not even fully present. And so I think, and then you throw social media in, and it's like our attention spans are so short that we can't pay attention for like long conversations. Like, I mean, I can't even sit through a movie anymore. But like it's people just they just want to be listened to at the end of the day. And that's kind of how I've dealt with hate. And um I remember the first like positive comment I got was just when was like first starting to play music. Like people were just so nice because I was so young and I was a little kid, and like everyone's very encouraging of little kids. And so that really, really motivated me to like pursue music. I think if I didn't have the support of my family, I don't think I would be making music today. And they've been so supportive the whole time that I've been making music, which has been really, really nice. And I remember the first time I got hate, it was intense hate. I was getting like death threats, like a lot in my DMs. And I did not know how to deal with that. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like people are wild, but I just kind of ignored them. And when they're that intense, you just have to ignore them. But when it's just like someone that's like, your song sucks, then you can just be like, oh, okay, I understand. You don't have to, it's okay. You don't have to like it. And then they're like, oh, well, thank you for listening to me.
Yeah, people, but I also look at it this way. When people hate, that means that you've done something that is getting
Yeah.
attention from both sides. And you're like, damn, maybe I am doing something the right way, because now you're getting people that are like, like for example, you were talking about how the first time you got, and you were just commenting on them. I it reminds me of like when Elvis Presley, when he was, getting massive, and he started selling merchandise, and he would sell "I hate Elvis Presley" buttons or "I hate Elvis Presley" t-shirts. And the reasoning
Yeah, I
behind it
love that.
was, hey, look, once you make money from the people that are going to hate you because they're supporting you either way, because they're going to buy this "I hate Elvis Presley" button, So
Yeah,
I
literally
always
that.
go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say we also recently I watched the Elvis movie and I saw that too and I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I want to do something like that. So we started printing um like coasters
Mm.
or not coasters. The like thing that goes around like a
Koozie.
cold beverage, a koozie. Yeah, we started printing koozies that said Chelsea is mid, and those sold
Right.
out immediately. They're all gone. Just because it's kind of funny, honestly,
Right.
to
Yeah.
have a koozie that says Chelsea is mid, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that idea. And that's something that I kind of recently realized too is like your like die hard haters are
Mm.
your biggest fans. They're the
Right.
ones that'll be in all your comment sections. They're the ones
Right.
that'll be tagging their friends. Like they are your biggest fans. Cause like if someone's taking time out of their day to actively hate on you, that means they just actively support you. You know,
Right. And
they're
right.
just that person that's getting you more likes and views.
Right. I'm gonna you mentioned you watched the Elvis movie, and what's cool for me is and I'm gonna give these people a shout out. I had somebody on the podcast, I mean, years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and they hooked me up with these people, and these people give me these, like, I get free movies all the time. Like they would just send me, so I don't have to go to the theaters and watch it because I review movies on the podcast, right? Well,
That's sick.
I went and watched Elvis when it first came out because I am the biggest Elvis fan you could ever meet. Like it's just the obsession that I have with Elvis is like completely, people would think I was chaotic just to imagine the obsession that I
Really?
have with him. So when I went and saw it, I was amazed. I was like, damn, they did this movie justice, exactly what it's supposed to be. And then I was watching it last night here at the house, and my brother wanted it, so I emailed it over to him, and I was like, hey, check it out. He likes a couple of Elvis songs, and then he was like, man, the movie, it wasn't as good. You hyped it up, so I want to know from a perspective of yours, what was the movie to you? Because were you just a diehard Elvis fan and the movie was fantastic, or were you just a mid Elvis fan and it was like, it was all right? because I think because I think that matters though. Like I was telling, I think it matters because I think if you're just the biggest Elvis fan, the movie is going to be fantastic for you. But if you just know a couple of songs, maybe the movie's not going to be as good because it doesn't do what normal biopics do. It doesn't go from beginning to end like they normally do. Like I said,
Yeah, I've enjoyed a lot of Elvis's music since I was young, and I've been a fan of him. I was a fan of him for a while, and I think they had a lot of life to fit into like two
right,
hours.
right.
So they had a lot to fit into that movie, and I think Austin Butler did a phenomenal job. I don't think they could have picked a better
I will
actor. I
say
thought he
this.
did a
I will say this, and I was watching the movie again. It was the second or third time that I watched it last night, and I was watching it. I go, "This, you can watch this movie and not think you're watching a fucking actor. You're watching literally. It's like they took Elvis Presley from the grave and they
yeah,
just put him in the movie. Like it's even Tom Hanks. I don't really
yeah.
care for his betrayal of Tom Parker, but it's like you're not watching Tom Hanks or this Austin Butler guy. You're watching the real people, and that was I appreciated that. I was like, damn, they killed it.
Well, and then there was like a scene at the end where I think they had the real Elvis,
Yeah,
but I wasn't sure. Like I couldn't
see,
tell if it was
right.
Austin or him, And that's where I was like, damn, Austin really did a good job in this movie.
Yeah.
But he worked so hard. I mean, I was reading about how he just like shut himself away from the world and only listened to Elvis
For a
like
year and a
interviews.
half. For a year and
Yeah,
a half,
that's
he shut
crazy.
himself in the apartment, aligned his entire bedroom with nothing but Elvis, watched nothing but Elvis, listened to
Oh
nothing
my
but
gosh.
Elvis. And I'm like, this guy's even nuttier than I am about this guy. Like he takes
Yeah.
he takes method acting to a whole nother level because even,
Totally.
and I've noticed this in interviews, and a lot of people have noticed it too. Like he'll do these interviews and he talks in a very subtle voice, but then you'll watch other interviews and he's just like a normal person, and it's like it's whether he's faking the deep voice or not, it's just amazing that it took that much of a toll on a person to play another person, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah, he like became that. He became him for sure. And so I think they had a lot of life to fit into that movie. So I don't think that there would have been a better way to do it, but I do think that to me, when I was watching it, I was like, this feels like a long advertisement for the movie that's just gone on for 2.5 hours because they didn't really stop very often to like
No,
play into dialogue.
it was very fast paced. And that's
Yeah.
what I think a lot of people are not going to like, because they're like, it just didn't stop. It was boom, 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 boom. But as you think
Yes.
about it, you're like, maybe Elvis's life was boom, 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 boom. Maybe everything happened.
I'm sure it was. Yeah.
And like you mentioned, and I've said this before, they have 44 years to fit into a 2 hour movie. They're not going to stop and point out every little, but you know how long of a damn movie that would be? That would be
Yeah.
that would be a long ass movie if they could do every detail. But I just appreciate the fact that they took a biopic. They took the outline of a biopic and they said, okay, we're going to tell a story that hasn't ever really been told before, between a musician and a money hungry manager, because music business is full of that. Aerosmith, Kiss, they've all had
Mhm.
managers that stole money and treated them like trash like this. And so I appreciated the fact that they took an outline of a biopic and they just morphed it into, what it became of. And people are going to complain, people are going to cry about it, but the fact is, it wasn't their movie to make. Like, I could have done it 10 times better. Once you go get $10 million to make a movie 10 times better, then you know what I mean? Like, go make it
Yeah.
better.
Literally. Literally.
So you mentioned in high school that you were getting hated on. So I wonder, what type of person were you in high school and as you were younger? Like, were you just a punk rock kid?
I feel like I was really rebellious and angsty, and I just kind of did my thing and didn't really care about what other people thought of me. And then I got to like sophomore year of high school, and I really like it all started to really get to my head. Like, I don't know, kids can be so mean. And so then, I didn't really know who I was. And I think having moved so much was really difficult for me because it's like three completely different cultures. Like Massachusetts, like the most loyal people you'll ever meet in your life, but not very friendly at all. And then you go to California and it's like the most friendly, outgoing people that you'll meet, but not very loyal. And then you go to Spain and it's just like not even, they don't even speak English there, And it's like the whole culture is about family and like spending time with family and like eating food together and just like enjoying your life. And I love Spanish culture. It's such a part of me. But I never really fit into the California culture, and I never really felt like a Californian. And I think that that was really hard for me in high school. I felt like I had to be someone that I wasn't. And I really started to take on these like people pleasing traits, I think, because so much had happened to me at that point in life. Like my aunt had died and she basically raised me, and I just had gone through so much at that point that I was feeling so just alone, and I didn't really have anyone that I could talk to about it. And so I felt I sort of embodied these like people pleasing traits because I was so like desperate to like make connections with people. And I actually did end up meeting one of like my lifelong best friends in high school, which I'm really grateful for her. But the rest of the people that I met were just very, very. It was a very difficult culture to go to high school in, and um, I still I don't know. I don't really enjoy going back there because I just don't feel like I'm a part of that community or those people, and they're just not my people. And I think There were a couple people that really like did some bullying damage to me growing up, but I think that it was I was really trying hard to like be something that I wasn't, and I think that probably rubbed people the wrong way, you know.
You know, I kind of feel the same with you, as in like I was bullied like bad, like bad, and I've shared stories that have just will give me nightmares from my own self, like just reliving them. And so I'm with you. Can't I will not go back to my high school. Like there's graduation. I'm sorry. I'm not going. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's not but then you realize you grow up, you know. I've been out of high school. I'm 24, so I've been out of high school a while, and you grow up and you're like, yeah, but they were just kids. But then you're like, but those kids did some damage that you can't really fix, because
Right.
it's
But
tough.
and you were just a kid too,
Yeah, you're
and
just
you didn't do that.
no. Why would you do the same thing that somebody was doing to you and was making you miserable? Like I
Yeah.
remember one time laughing at a kid for something that had happened, and you're laughing at it, and you just feel immediately bad because you're like, damn, I was that guy that was being laughed at. So like you just kind of
Mhm.
snap out of that instant reaction, and you go to go back to normality, as if, damn, I was that kid before. But
Yeah.
I wonder, does your childhood, you mentioned you were bullied, and you were just looked different upon, does that has to kind of morph your songwriting and your musicianship a little bit?
Yeah, I think honestly, like the only thing I really had for a while was music and writing. And there was a year long period where I had no friends. My dad lived in Canada. My mom wasn't totally like in a great mental space because her sister had just died. And like I was so alone, and the only thing that I had at that time
It
was
was music.
songwriting
Yeah.
and music.
Yeah.
And it really saved my life. And I mean, the songs I was writing weren't great. Like, you could look back and they're not great songs, but having that as an outlet was really just magical, I feel like, for me. And it still is. And I think that's why I tell people like music is the love of my life. And I've told my boyfriend, I'm like, I love you, but I'm always going to love music more. Music has saved
100%.
my life on
100%.
so many occasions. And like, and I'm sure that for the rest of my life it'll continue to save my life, and I think it has that effect on most people. So I think that's what's so special about it.
Give me your top three bands or musicians of all time.
Oh, that's so hard. I think well, so the Strokes and Julian Casablancas are the reason I like started making music. Like
Yeah.
that, their band was like my high school band, so I have a deep appreciation for the Strokes. But I think Tom York and Radiohead has been
Mm.
one of my top favorites for a while. I like just he's a genius. That whole band is phenomenal. And I've been listening to The Smile a lot recently, which is his like new project. I'm actually going to see them at the Ryman in December, which is going to be crazy. And then the Smashing Pumpkins for sure. Love the Smashing Pumpkins. I also think even though Billy Corgan is kind of not the best person, I do think he's really talented.
Yeah. So do they change like on a daily normal basis, where you're like, damn, it's the best band of all time, and then like 3 months pass, you never listen to them, you're like, you kind of forget about them, and then it changes again, and then they come back running like, damn it, that's right, they are that good, because I have that all the time.
Yes, yes, totally. I feel like whenever I try and listen to a lot of modern music, and like there's a lot of local bands that I've been really enjoying in Nashville. Um, but I always go back to like home base, which is those three bands.
Now, does your like can you go what does your playlist look like? Can you go from I don't know, Counting Crows to a John Mayer, just in a normal playlist setting? or do you kind of have moods where you're like, okay, while I'm doing this, I have to listen to this. While I'm doing this, I have to listen to this.
Yeah, I actually do have my playlists are kind of separated by moods for sure. And when I'm writing, like writing poetry, or like I wrote a book. And so like whenever I'm writing, like without music, I have to be listening to classical piano. So I
Yeah,
have
hey,
like a whole classical
I
piano
have the
playlist.
same. I listen to when I'm doing research for a podcast, or if I'm just studying in general, I will throw on some classic music on a playlist, some Beethoven, some Tchaikovsky. I throw all that on all the time, and people think I'm crazy, but I'm like, no, because if you want to listen to music, I don't want to listen to somebody getting dumped, or throwing a party or what have you. I want to listen to just straight well, I call it energetic, because it makes me energized when I listen to classical while I'm doing studies. I mean, it's it's
Totally.
it's a mind space you have to put it's a mind space you have to put yourself in, because it is weird listening to classical music, because we're not 1600s anymore. I mean, we're we're in a
Yeah,
time where great bands live, and
totally.
it's yeah, but I'm right there with you with the classical.
Yeah, and I think if I when I listen to like songs with words, I get so caught up in the lyrics because I just love lyrics so much that I can't focus on what I'm doing. And I grew up like the first instrument I learned to play was piano, and I was like playing classical piano, and so I think it just like kind of soothes me now listening to it because it's like everything that I grew up like learning how to play as a kid. And it's just so, I don't know, it calms my mind, and it also like kind of like gives me something to multitask on, so I can just turn my brain off and just like let the words flow.
Right. So what we or you mentioned, Taylor Swift and Drake with some of your first concerts, but what's one of the best concerts you've ever been to? One where you were like, I would relive that concert every day of my life if I could.
Definitely the Beach Bunny concert at Brooklyn Bowl.
Okay.
That was insane. That was so much fun. I like, oh my God. Yeah, I would relive that. They do such a great job of like including the crowd and like getting people excited and getting people to sing their songs with them. And it's just like, you don't even feel like you're like separated from the artist. Like it's like you're all one. And that's what was so magical about that.
Yeah, I mine is always, and I've said this before, mine is always Kiss. I saw them at the Coliseum in
Really?
Biloxi, and man, they were because they've always been one of my favorite bands. Mine and my brother's.
Kiss?
Kiss, yeah, Kiss and Aerosmith are like tied at number one. I can't pick between the two because I know if I do, I'm gonna break my own heart somewhere. But
Oh
Kiss
my
had come
gosh.
on their final tour in Biloxi, and me and my brother and my brother's wife went, and it was one of the most. I cried during a concert, Chelsea. I cried because it's it's
It was
some
that good.
it's well, I don't know if it's that good or if it's just you don't know when you don't know when your last day is going to be. Like, like I could have died on the
Mm,
way home and it'd been like, damn, like what a night
yeah.
that was. Like, like when they played Beth on the piano and it was rising from the stage, and it was it was just an experience that I don't think I will ever experience again, because I don't think I've indebted my entire life to any other musician or band.
That's totally fair. Yeah, it's different when you have like a history with that band and like you've been following them and keeping up with them for like your whole life.
Well, yeah, I mean, it started because I wasn't allowed to listen to him because mom thought that was devil music,
Really?
because Gene Simmons is demon, because he's quoted as the demon. But
What?
yeah, I grew up, Chelsea, and it's well known. I grew up not able to listen to anything but country music because everything was devil music. So I
What?
found all my music like inspirations like the Beatles and Aerosmith and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and all of those. I found them night probably my freshman year. Like I remember listening to it, hearing it at my cousin's house, but not dare say a word going home. Don't say you listen to Ozzy Osbourne or you listen to
No way.
AC/DC. Yeah, I mean, so it's, and that's what I'm saying as the experience, as if you're listening to that, and it's just, it's crazy what people will make somebody believe. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
shit, you better not touch them devil worshippers because it's what you were told. I believed it. Your parents, they're not supposed to lie to you. You know,
Right.
it's
Right.
crazy.
No, it's true. You totally like you spend I feel like you spend like the first like 10 to 12 years of your life just like taking in information from your parents, and then you have to spend the rest of your life unlearning everything that you learned for the first 10 to 12 years, you know?
As we kind of wind down here, couple more questions for you, and it's kind of on the topic of hodgepodgeness, I guess you could call it. Just anything that kind of pops in my head, and I wonder, what's the last book that you've ever read? Like the last book you just put down.
Ooh. Well, I'm in the process of reading one right now, but I guess I didn't. That's
Okay.
not the
Well, what
last
what, what
one.
book are you reading right now?
Um, it's it's called "You Are a Badass." My friend Kat gave it to me, and it's just kind of like a motivational book, which
Okay.
has been really awesome. It's been great. But I really, ooh, I've started so many books and haven't finished so many of them. The one that I have read a couple times and will continue to read over and over again is The Alchemist. And I think that's probably the most recent one that I've finished. It's the most beautiful book I've ever read in my life. And
Is it like a fiction,
I,
or is it, I don't know what The Alchemist is. I don't think.
yes, it's fiction. And oh my gosh, okay, you're gonna think I'm so dumb because I'm 24 years old and I still can't figure out the difference between fiction and nonfiction. Nonfiction is real and fiction is not real.
Here's how I look at it. Here's how I look at it. This is how I learned in school. Nonfiction is not fake. Fiction is fake. So
Okay, cool.
nonfiction, not fake, is real. Fiction is
That's what
fake.
I thought.
Yeah.
I have such an issue with that. Like there's a couple things that just like that I can't just they just don't make sense in my brain. And that's
Mhm.
like the main thing that just makes no sense in my brain. But yeah, no, it's fiction. But it's like a beautiful metaphor, and I highly recommend reading that one. I read a lot of like spiritual books, or like the Four Agreements, and like the Seven Spiritual Laws to Success by Deepak Chopra. I love to read like books to like help with my meditation and just like practice of like getting into the flow state, because I think it helps tremendously with songwriting.
And let me ask you a question. When you're reading books, no matter what type of book it is, are you the type of person that will have a highlighter and a pencil kind of handy in case you want to jot something down about the book inside the lines?
I always do that.
Okay. See, I
Yeah,
I
I
am
always do
with
that.
I am with certain books, like because I am like
Yeah,
very OCD, very like
yeah.
everything's alphabetical order, everything is perfect the way I want it. But there's certain books where I'm like, okay, this has to be pristine condition, just because it's either my favorite or it's something. It just
That's
has to
fair.
be. But then there's other books where I'm like, wow, okay, this is a lot of information. Let me go through here, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, like Walter Isaacson. He's one of my favorite biographers. He wrote the Steve Jobs, he did Albert Einstein, he did Benjamin Franklin's biography. And those books, I feel that I can go in and highlight and write in the margins. That way I can, like, I have probably went through about 5,000 sticky notes because I will write notes on the sticky note and stick on pages. That way, if I want to
Hmm.
know something, I don't have to read the whole page. I can go back and look at the. I
Yes.
am a pain in the ass to live with. I will say that. I am
Yeah.
a pain. I
Why?
just, because I just, certain things like just like that. Like I'm just a pain like that because it's like my brother come down and be like, I want to borrow something, and I'm like, okay. But if it doesn't come back in this exact condition that I have it in this protective sleeve, you're gonna have to buy me another one plus interest. Like it's just
Plus
I'm just a
interest.
pain to I'm the pain to have to deal with. Like I'm a germaphobe, I'm OCD, I it's crazy. So I wonder, are you a pain to live with? And if so, why? And if not, then that's fair.
I think yes and no. I feel like I'm very good at communicating when I have issues. And that took me so long to
Oh
get
God,
there
I'm not.
because
Oh God, I'm not. Oh my
I
God,
used to
I'm
be
not.
so bad at it. I used to be the worst at communicating my feelings. I would just hide if I felt anything because I didn't want to upset anyone. But now I've gotten really good at communicating whenever I have problems, which is nice. But I spent a long time also being like really OCD, like everything needed to be spotless, everything needed to be
Yes.
clean. And I think living with three dudes has really helped me to let go of that and to just like accept that like not everything's going to be clean all the time. And that is totally fine. And I've gotten to a great place with it because it was like really getting in my head. Like I would not be able to get work done if things weren't
Right,
clean.
right.
And I'm really glad that I've kind of like slowly started to let go of that. Because that was definitely a pain in the ass quality that I had to live with. And I think also I do very impulsive things. Like I operate very impulsively. Like I will buy a plane ticket tomorrow and travel to like, I don't know, like Spain. Like I really operate in the moment. And like I just bought a van the other day, which was very impulsive, but great decision for the band. And like I think that is a little bit terrifying sometimes for my roommates because they're like, "You are a very impulsive person. You need to just chill." But usually when I'm impulsive, it ends up being really good.
Yeah, it's yeah, I'm not the impulsive same way. Like I will major decisions kind of come quickly to me. Like the decision making on major decisions are kind of like, okay. But if it's like what we're gonna eat today or what movie are we gonna watch or what we're gonna watch on Netflix, it will take me 3 days to figure it out. Like I'm not that
Yeah.
type of person that figures something out, but majorly like, oh my God, how the hell am I gonna pay this bill this week? Like it's kind of simple, like, oh, boom, let's do it like this. I know exactly how to do it. Let's just do it. But then when it comes to some minor things, it's it's very
Well, I
hard
feel
for
like
me.
yes, I get that. And I think like when you're like having to choose a movie on Netflix or like having to choose food to order on Postmates, it's like you have so many options that you get so caught up in the options that you can't even focus on the result. So those decisions are really difficult for me as well.
Now, here's kind of how I live my life, non-choosing. Like I don't choose to live this way. It overtakes me. I want to know if you're opposite or the same, as in like, okay, let's say I'm reading this Elvis Presley book right now, right? Let's say if I sit down and I open it up, I'm going to start reading it for 15 minutes. My mind immediately is going to go, well, you were complaining the other day about not being able to catch up on the TV show. You could have watched 15 minutes of the show that you spent reading. So then I will go, you know what? You're right. I'm talking to me. I'm like, you're right. Let's stop reading the book and let's watch the show. And then I'm sitting there for about 30 minutes and I go, this 30 minutes that you've wasted lying on the bed watching TV, you could have been doing something, studying or doing an interview or reading your book. And it's just, it eats at me every single day. So like I can't do something without bashing myself, I guess you could call it, because it's like, I don't know. I don't know what you call, I don't know what it is, but it's just this every day. It's another reason I'm a pain to live with, I would
No,
think.
I get that. I totally can relate to that. I think that's why I can't watch TV often because whenever I'm watching TV, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am wasting my time when I could be creating, I could be making music, I could be writing, I could be producing, I could be doing anything else but watching this show. And I totally feel that. I think like meditation has really helped me to just stay present in the moment and stay grounded, and it's been really helpful for that. But whenever I'm watching TV, I can't I can't watch TV because I get so
Mm-hmm.
like stressed out that I'm not creating something, you know?
Mm-hmm. What are your pet peeves? Do you have any pet peeves? Like what while you think, I'll give you one of mine. It's
Okay.
I love watching like the Gordon Ramsay shows, like Hell's Kitchen or Master Chef. For me, those are entertainment at its finest for me. I could never go on that fucking show, and I'll tell you why. Because if somebody says the rice doesn't have enough salt, I'd be like, well, then you cook the shit then. I mean, I'm sitting here, I cook this whole meal for you. I cannot take criticism when it comes to food because I feel that I worked hard on this for 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, and
Yeah.
it's one of my loves. I love cooking. It takes my mind off of things. It just lets me do things. And obviously I like to eat. You can look at me and tell, but it's just one of those things. That's a pet peeve is don't judge my food unless you have something good to say. So I could never go on one of those cooking shows. Never.
That's valid. That's
No,
valid. I mean, I
there's
think
no way.
it's like an art too. Cooking is an art, and you know, people's palates are so different too that people like
Right.
and dislike different things, and you know, if someone's making me food, like I will not complain because I can't cook. So like anytime my boyfriend's made me food, it's like the best thing in the entire world because it's like, yay, I don't have to eat like a burrito today. Like I actually am going to get some great food, you
But
know?
do you ever
So
find
like,
that odd though? Like I know, think about this. We're living in a world of sexism. No matter what people think, because I
mhm,
always think sexist. Like when you hear of a doctor, I automatically think of a man, not a woman.
yeah,
Or if you think
it's
of a teacher, you automatically think of a woman and not a man. And when you mention that you couldn't cook, I automatically think, what woman can't cook? But then you're like, well,
fine.
we're living in a new day of age where that's that's more common than not.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. It is crazy like how much is just ingrained in us from the society that we live in. And you know, it's I feel like it's just like our duty as like the younger generation to just like actively be trying to unlearn those things and so that we don't pass those biases onto our kids. But like it's hard not to, you know. I think when you know, and I think that's also something that terrifies me about California is that like the people that I grew up around there are just as sexist and racist and homophobic as the rest of the country, but they all think they're so woke. And that is what
Right.
terrifies me
Right.
because it's like, well, if you think you're so woke, then you're not actively trying to unlearn those things, you
Right.
know? And then they tell me, oh no, you're moving to the South, watch out. And I moved to the South and it's like, you know, it's the same situation as everywhere else. Everyone's doing their best to try and unlearn those things and to not be that way. You know, I don't
Right.
think you meet someone that's like, yes, I want to be sexist, you know? Like I don't think you would meet someone that wants to be that way. And so it's just, I mean, it's an epidemic in our country. And I think as we're all actively trying to unlearn that, but you know, it's, you know, we're so close to like the there really hasn't been a lot of time that's passed since like women got the right to vote, you know? Like
Yeah.
we seem like we're so far removed from that, but we're not. So,
Yeah,
you
it's
know, it's
just
just
what's I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and I don't want to get political. It's not about presidents. It's we had a conversation about Roe versus Wade being overturned.
mm,
And I said, well, wait a minute. Because if you look at all the board, it's a bunch of old men that are living in their times when it was illegal to do so. So they feel that they are still living in their time, that they should still feel and do the same thing. Right.
yeah.
And I mentioned this. I said to a friend of mine, I was like, well, hang on. I know how we could throw a loop into this whole situation. Why don't we have somebody that is ballsy enough to go to these people and say, okay, sir, Mr. Richard, what about that one time that you thought you had a pregnancy scare? And let's just say that one child, now, if you would have had that one child, it would have changed your life dramatically. And you probably wouldn't be in the situation you're in right now, sitting in that chair voting on this. And
Literally.
it was, it's just crazy the world that we're living in. And you're right. It's not just racist and sexist in the South. I mean, hell, I went up north and they were just as rude as some of us down here are. Like, I mean, it's just
probably more rude, honestly. I feel like people at
probably.
least are friendly here.
But yeah, it's like I went I don't remember where I was at, but I had said yes, ma'am, and they looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm in a southern state of mind. I mean, I'm in Mississippi. What do you want me to say? Yeah. Which
yeah.
I will say this, and I want to know, when you were growing up with your mom and dad, did you ever say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir, or was it just yes, no?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because like the California culture is a lot more disrespectful to your
Okay.
parents, and I
Okay.
was not very
No,
respectful to my parents
no,
growing up at all.
I say that because I don't say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. I just say yes or no. Because I feel I understand it's a respect thing. And I say that to them all the time. Like, I understand it's a respect thing. Yes, sir, no, sir. I understand that for Southern. But I also feel that if I'm saying yes, sir, and no, ma'am, or whatever to you, that I'm your slave, or that it just has this weird feeling to me that that you're not my boss. So why should, which they, in a technical term, they are, but they're also your parent. So I
Right.
don't, it's just this weird thing that I'm like, I don't say sir or ma'am to my parents, because there's a different feeling when you're in town, or when you're in town, or you're out and someone asks you a question and you have the respect to say ma'am or sir. But I don't feel the same about at home. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
I don't see why it should be required that you say ma'am and sir in the South to your parents, because again, I feel that they're obviously over me, but I kind of feel that we're one. Like, if that makes sense, like,
Yeah.
because if you go out,
Totally.
you're not one with that one person that is in town, or you see at the courthouse or whatever. You're totally different, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
No, I agree. I agree completely. Yeah, that's true. That's a good way of looking at it. And I think like I did grow up like learning like how to like I still call all of my parents' friends like Mr. and Mrs.
Right,
whatever their
right,
last name
right.
is. And I don't know if I'm ever going to like, is there an age that happens where you don't do that? Because I don't know. I still feel like I'm like a kid. And I also was thinking about that recently too. Like people when they start having kids probably still feel like they're kids. You know?
Do
Like do you
you,
ever stop feeling like a kid?
I love feeling like a kid. Like, I have my same friend that I was talking about the Roe versus Wade thing, grew up in a very strict, like, Asian household. And he's like, dude, you have to stop acting like a kid. And I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
24. I love feeling like it's just this crazy thing. And he's like, it's just a matter of where you grew up, where it's like you stop being a kid at 18 and you grow the fuck up. You stop being, a mom's
Yeah.
child or a daddy's girl or whatever. But me, I still watch the same old cartoons that I watched when I was younger. Like, I just bought the box set of the 1990s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like, and I
No
will
way.
sit and I will watch that shit for hours on end. But yes, I will see people on Facebook. I'm like, damn, they're working on their third kid. But then I'm like, well, wait, I could be on my third kid. I'm almost 25 years old. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
and I'm 25. I'm still at the house with my parents because I'm trying to save up enough to buy a damn studio for the podcast.
Oh,
It's
that's sick.
it's weird to see the priorities like
Mhm.
that versus others, because my brother has two kids. My sister just had a kid 6 months ago,
Wow.
and their sister's 18, 19. My brother is 21, 22, something like that. And
No
it's
way.
and
Oh,
it's
so they're younger than you.
they're younger. Yeah, I'm the oldest. And it's crazy to see that my brother had a kid. Let's see, 3, 19. My brother had a kid at 19. And it was crazy to see his
Wow.
world change quick, and his priority to go from, okay, I'm going to stop buying this stupid Marvel stuff online because I got a kid to save for, versus me. I'm like,
Wow.
damn, a kid. I don't need a kid right now. I'm trying to put the podcast everywhere, you know, and it's crazy, the
Yeah,
priorities.
and then I mean, I can't even imagine. I feel like having a kid, you would feel like you have to save your money to like support your child. I feel like the way I think, I'm like, I'm going to make some money. I'm going to spend that money. I'm not going to save my money because the world is probably going to end in the next 25 years. And I don't really care. But if I had a kid, my priorities would be so different. Like, I feel like I would definitely be more into saving money. Yeah. I don't know. I think that's why I don't really see myself having kids ever.
Yeah, I don't want kids. I don't think I want
It
kids.
seems like a lot. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what I think, if we were to have a kid, like, you know, you were to have a kid or I were to have a kid, I think we would figure it out, because you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
But like, you know, like I don't want a kid. I ain't worthy enough to have a kid. What the fuck have I done to have a kid? You know, I'm
Yeah.
and then it's like, but if it happens, it happens. And you're just like, but it fucking can't happen, because if it happens now,
Yeah.
then I'm screwed. Like my nephews are everything to me, like literally. And
Yeah.
but I couldn't see myself supporting them 24 hours, 7 days a week. And it's crazy.
No.
It's crazy.
Yeah, we just got like a baby cat, a kitten, and that is so much work for me. I can't even imagine a child, you know?
Yeah, children are next level. Like, but then once, like, when I have my nephews, you realize just how much they mean to you. Like now, like my nephew would be like, I need some chicken nuggets or something. And then, you know, he can eat an entire chicken nugget, but you still want to cut it up, because you're like, if this kid goes to choking, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. I'm going to freak out.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think that's also the beauty of kids too, is
Right.
that like, you know, you still feel like a kid. And so when you have a kid, it allows you to like be that, live vicariously through them and like be a kid again, you know?
The
But
coolest,
that's also something I've,
but
what were
the
you gonna
cool,
say?
I was going to say, the coolest thing though about having my nephews is they will watch the same stuff I watched growing up, and it will make me, you know what I
That's
mean? That's
sweet.
the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Like they just started watching oh my god, they started watching something. I can't think, it's blanking on me, but I was like, that is the coolest thing ever, because that was 25 years ago and you're watching it, you know,
That's
like
so
it's
sweet.
crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you like that, well, come to my Blu-ray collection, because I have all the all the Marvels, all the Disneys. Come look, let's watch it. And it's crazy, but it's a
That's
beautiful thing though.
awesome. It is. It is. There's something I've never totally understood is like when you have the amount of money to like build a house for yourself or buy a house, why don't you just design your house like with fun things like indoor swings and slides and like plants everywhere? You know, I've never understood why people like just like make their houses so like adult. I don't know.
Well,
Maybe when I'm an adult, I'll figure that out. But I don't know. If I could design my house, it'd be full of swings and
it's like
like slides and fun things.
it's like that TikTok where it goes, being an adult, I have access to adult money, so I could buy the adult
Right.
stupid things that I want.
Right. If you have access to adult money, why don't you make your house super fun? Like I feel like my whole house would be like a green room. Like in terms of like having sunlight everywhere
I
and
understand.
plants everywhere.
A greenhouse.
Yeah. Yeah, not like a green room before a show, but a greenhouse, yes.
Well, look, Chelsea, we've been on over an hour. So you have a new EP out September 9th called Quantum Entanglement. Um, your
Yes.
new single 555 is out everywhere now. So um, thanks for coming on. The floor is yours. You got as many time as you want to promote and put out anything you want to put out there to the public.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, we have our album Quantum Entanglement, which comes out September 9th, which includes our single 555. And it's just sort of about finding like balance within yourself. It's like a long, yeah, it's probably a piece of it is a piece of my soul. And we've been working really hard on this album. It's been like a year and a half in the making. So I'm really excited for it to be out into the world. And you can find me on social media at King Chelsea with no vowels. And then we're on Spotify, just CHLSY.
Chelsea, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you people reaching out, wanting you to come on the show. It means a lot. And I know this is probably the worst podcast interview or interview in general that you're ever going to have. But I thank you for coming on anyways.
No, I thank you so much for taking the time to interview me and talk to me about all this. This has been a great podcast experience. I've very much enjoyed this. So I don't know what you're saying. This has been, it's nice to just like talk and not feel like, I don't know, I have to be super intense and just like have a conversation. It feels like I'm talking to just a friend, you know? And I think that's like the ideal podcast.
It's the point. Because
yes.
some people it's like pulling teeth, and it's like, come on, give me something.
Right. No, you're great at what you do. And I'm really excited to keep up with the podcast. And I am grateful to you for having me on today.
All right, Chelsea, I thank you very much. This is off the record. This will go up Monday, so a week from today. So I'll tag you on all the stuff. Send it over to your people. They'll send it to you, the normal stuff.
Fantastic.
But thanks for coming on, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was great talking with you and meeting you. And yeah, we'll keep in touch. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right, you too, Chelsea.
Bye.
All right, bye.